We have a GoFundMe page to raise funds to help British Muslims find a spouse. And our platform consists of two main projects. Number one, marriage events. These are events designed and structured to assist Muslims find a spouse. And number two, our podcast, which you're listening to right now. As you know, it's called Divorced Muslims, A Second Chance. If you want to donate, please find the link to the GoFundMe page below. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to Divorced Muslims, A Second Chance podcast. My name is Muhammad and I am your host. In this episode, we are joined by Sister Fiaza and Sister Amaira. Both of these sisters are divorced and both are single mothers. They will discuss their story and provide their views about the marriage search. Just a warning for everyone, this episode contains sensitive subjects. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters, in today's episode we have two sisters who have joined our episode today, and they have both very interesting experiences and stories to share. So if I go to our first guest today, that is Sister Amaira. Assalamu alaikum. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Walaikum salam, Mo. Yeah, I'm 42 years old and I'm a divorced mum of two, and I live and work in London.
Okay. And then we have our second guest, which is Sister Fiaza. Sister Fiaza, assalamu alaikum. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Walaikum salam, Muhammad, Amaira. I'm Fiaza. I'm 57 years old. I'm a mother of two grown-up daughters. I live in West London and I'm a skincare specialist.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sister Fiaza. I'll go back to Amaira. Amaira, I want to briefly speak about, you're obviously divorced just like Sister Fiaza. So I want to speak to you about your first marriage. Just very, very briefly, how did you come across your ex-partner?
So it was an arranged marriage from a guy from back home. I went to India and I was originally shown a photo of him, but I wasn't keen on going ahead. When I went to see him, my intention was just to say no, but my relatives had other plans. So they kind of got me into a room and they were just trying to make me understand that I need to get married to him. He comes from a good family. His mom's a head teacher. We have good relations with the family. They might encourage your brothers and sisters to get married. So in the end, I just gave in. So I did feel that I was pressured into getting married to him, but I feel that on the day, I was happy to go ahead with it.
How old were you, Amaira?
I was 19.
And how old was your ex-husband at the time?
He was 21.
And Amaira, how long ago was your divorce?
It's been nearly 3 years.
And how long were you married for?
19 years.
Wow, so that's 2 decades.
Yep.
That's like Sweet Bobby times 2.
Yeah.
All right, so let me take it to Sister Fiaza. Sister Fiaza, same question to you. How did you come across your ex-partner?
So Muhammad, I met him, I was living in Karachi, Pakistan for 1 year. We decided to try and, settle out there. And that's how I met him. I met him towards the end of the year when we decided we were going to leave Pakistan because things were getting really, very dangerous out there.
Okay, and how long ago was your divorce?
My divorce was last year.
And how long were you married for?
Over 20 years.
Okay, mashallah. All right, so let's go to Sister Amaira. Focusing on your divorce. And Amaira, it's up to you how much detail or how less detail you go into this. It's a matter for you, but I'm still going to pose a question about your divorce story. Tell us what happened and how it all panned out.
Obviously, he came over to this country and, I didn't know him too well, so I did make the effort to get to know him. But I suppose there was a language barrier in terms of his English is not his first language, so it was quite difficult. But in the beginning, it was good. I actually felt that I did fall in love with him and he was a good person. He was kind. Everything that you'd ask for in a man, he was praying and everything. But I think the first red flag was when he was asked to give rent to the family home, considering he's living with my family. He wasn't too happy about it and he was just throwing the money on the bed and he wasn't too happy that he had to contribute. We were married for about 3 years and we had a baby, but we decided London was not affordable, so we decided to move up north to be closer to his family. We felt we'd get the support there and we'd probably be able to buy a house there maybe. about maybe like a year and a half into moving up north, I had a bit of trouble. He done something quite bad. And that was like the start of many of our problems.
When you say he did something bad, is that something you want to discuss or you want to leave it at that?
Yeah, no, I can go on. I was just sitting at home one day and he went to pray Isha in the mosque. And I got a knock on the door and it was one of the neighbours asking me if I'd seen his younger sister who was 14. So I said no. Like, I think she had come over a few hours before that, but I hadn't seen her since then. So he told me that she'd gone to the shop to buy something, which she usually does at 10 o'clock at night, and she wasn't back. And considering the shop is just down the road, it's not too far. Then he said to me, "Where's your husband?" So I said to him, "He's gone to the mosque to pray." So I thought that was a bit strange, but I closed the door. And then I started wondering, how come he's not back from prayer yet? And then I think I started calling round like his relatives and a few like friends of the family and asking them if they knew where he was, because even I was getting worried that he's not back home. Then I started getting people turning up on my doorstep. They were basically saying that he's taken her. So I was a bit shocked at that.
One second. They were saying that he had taken her, as in he had taken the 14-year-old neighbour.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, like, what do you mean, like kidnapped her or something? I was quite shocked. But the way they were carrying on was that he just, like, suddenly just kidnapped her. I mean, I wasn't too sure what was going on at this point, but then I had all of the neighbours turning up at my house saying that, where is he? And we're going to call the police. They wanted his registration number of his car. So obviously I gave that to them. The police were called. A lot of the neighbours were driving around searching for them. They didn't find him anyway, but he came back home. And I mean, at this point in time, I had quite a few people in my house already. Then the police came and then they questioned him. I think they questioned the girl as well.
Was he actually with her in the car?
He'd already dropped her off like somewhere else, like maybe on the corner. And she walked back home and then he walked back into the house like as if nothing had happened. So at this point, obviously I asked him, like, where were you? He didn't really answer the question. He just went silent. And then obviously when the police turned up, then they had to take him in another room and ask him all the questions. And then he admitted that he was with her for 2 hours. That was the first incident.
He was with her for 2 hours. What does that mean? What was going on for 2 hours? Do you know any information on that?
He didn't mention what he actually done with her in the car. But obviously, if you want to put two and two together, you can. I think what she told the police, that's what they've gone on. So they said that nothing did happen and she had consent into getting into the car. You know, the way I see it is that she's a child and she shouldn't have been with a 25-year-old man just driving around for 2 hours. I mean, he said that they were talking for 2 hours and they lost track of time. That's why he was, late getting back. But it's not normal behavior for her and it's not normal behavior for him. Obviously, the neighbours weren't too happy. Like, there was a lot of family friends at my door saying that they're going to shoot my husband and all of this because they were really angry that he'd done that. But yeah, he didn't hold any accountability. He didn't think what he'd done was wrong. If you look at the fact that a child was missing for 2 hours and they didn't know where she was, no one knew where she was. Even I didn't know where he was. I thought he was maybe dead or something, That was the first sign of trouble. I mean, in terms of whether he has a thing for young girls. I mean, they were blaming the young child about this as well. They were saying, it was her choice to get into the car. She's a very pretty girl. They were basically justifying the reasons why it happened.
Who's they were justifying?
Relatives.
Okay. Tell me what happens next then.
So obviously the girl's father is a bit of I wouldn't say a gangster, but he's well known. He said that he will get someone to beat him up. We were literally basically run out of town. We had to go back home to London. I mean, my family were obviously welcoming. They said, you can come back, it's not a problem. At this point, a lot of people were saying that you can't leave him because, he's naive, he didn't know what he was doing. There's not much wrong with what he done. He made a mistake. So I thought, okay, at that time, I just accepted it. I had a lot of other stuff going on. My father had just passed away and I had a baby. So to have gotten divorced at that stage of my life in my marriage, I think it would have been too much for me and it could have caused me more trauma. But I mean, Allah knows best, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to hear about your father. May Allah grant in the highest ranks of Jannah. Okay. So then what happens in your marriage?
Well, we moved back to London and then, I tried to make a go of things. So I tried to carry on normal, but it was making things a bit difficult in terms of, finding another job. He didn't basically want to move back to London. He said that he was happy to live up north and why did we move back to London? But I said, you can't live in a town where everyone hates your guts and they want to basically beat you up. Like that's not possible. But in the end, yeah, he just got on with it, got a job, still complaining about everything. And then we just moved out the family home. We started renting. We just basically got on with things. But there was always that niggling thought in the back of my mind that what if he does things again? So I think I decided that I didn't want to have any more children with him, because just in case he does something similar to this. And then after that, I started finding like messages on his phone, like apps like Facebook. I was finding messages from random women on there. I think one time someone got in touch with me saying that they found some messages from my husband. I got some sent to me, obviously, to show me what it was about. And basically, it wasn't talking about the weather. They weren't very nice messages.
Did you confront him about this?
Yeah, I confronted him. He was very aggressive in terms of, when I did confront him about it, he was acting as like it's normal. He can do what he wants to do. It just got worse. I think there were times when he would just, change his password. And even when I used to ask him like what his password is, he'd just like laugh it off. I think he got serious at one point when he was just hiding his phone all the time. Even if he went in the shower, he'd hide the phone in his drawer. I was never allowed to even touch his phone. And when I used to confront him about it, he'd be like, again, you're being suspicious. You don't need to be suspicious. But even when I confronted him about the messages, he'd just laugh it off. He never took it seriously. But it's time and time again, saying the same thing over and over again, that, why are you doing all of these things? So he wouldn't listen to me.
Let's move forward then in your marriage. So you remember you're married for 19 years, right?
Yep.
So let's fast forward. Carry on going. Talk me through what happens and how the divorce happens.
Regarding like the problems with him messaging random women, I would tell his sister that this is what he's doing, and she would obviously like have a go at him, because she knew that was wrong. Again, he just would say that, yeah, I won't do it again, and I've changed. So I'm still going on the fact that we've got children, and I need to make this marriage work. I'm putting all my effort into it, and with him, he's just thinking I can do whatever I want to do, because I've got my foot in the door. I've got my own home. I've got the nice wife who cooks for me, cleans for me, who does everything for me. Like, literally, I used to do everything for him. I'm quite traditional like that. But in the end, I actually found messages to show that he's actually having an affair. This time is real. It's not him just messaging people trying to have an affair. This was the point where he was actually having an affair. So I had to bring in a family friend to sort this out. Because obviously divorce wasn't even on my mind. I just thought, we need to make it work for the children. This guy confronted him. He touched the Quran and said that he won't do it again. But even though he was not like remorseful that he'd done these things, he was acting as like he can do whatever he wants to do, which is what he said to me, that I can have 10 women if I want to. What are you going to do about it? Regarding his position in the job that he does, everything he does affects him. So he shouldn't be doing these kind of things anyway, but he didn't think that anything would happen anyway. So
just before we fast forward, who was it that he was having an affair with?
It was a lady who was like of similar age. Maybe she was 37.
In the Muslim community?
Yeah, Muslim community.
Was she aware that he was married to you?
She knew.
Okay, fast forward 3 years, you were saying. Just before we talk about that,
yep.
You said that divorce wasn't even on your mind at that point. There may be many sisters listening to this. They may be thinking, wait, what do you mean? Like, we would like end it on this point. And I'm not criticizing you. I just want to know, what was your thought process when you thought, okay, let's sort this out? You tried to solve the problem. What was your thought process at the time?
I was just thinking of the kids, really, that they need a mom and dad. I don't really want to be divorced at this stage of my life. I don't want to start all over again. Being a single mom would be difficult. I won't have the financial support. So mainly it was like financial and for the kids, really, because I didn't want the kids to know what was happening. I was scared. I would say I was very scared of walking away.
Okay. So now you said you send him to Umrah. Tell us what happens from then onwards.
So, he came back and then, I'm thinking, obviously, he's changed. He's not going to do something stupid again. So, obviously, I'm just carrying a normal life again. Our day-to-day life was pretty normal. In terms of, how a normal married couple live, it was normal. Everyone has arguments. But I think the arguments we were having were sometimes over really stupid things. He kept going back to what he done like so many years ago. It was just, we were going round and round in circles. It was never getting solved, because he never said that he would change. He wouldn't accept the fact that he was in the wrong. Sometimes it's like banging your head against a brick wall. It was very difficult living with him. He was very childish. So many points I wanted to walk away, and I said to him that I don't know why you don't just divorce me. Like, if you're not happy with me, just divorce me. So in that way, it was a volatile marriage, I would say. But on the other hand, he was kind and caring. I think men like him, they can be good at certain times, but when they're bad, they're very bad. So I think that's the reason why I stayed with him, because I thought he's very good to me in terms of he lets me go out when I want to go out. He doesn't tell me how I should dress or how I shouldn't dress. He was quite, open, I would say. He wouldn't restrict me in terms of, who I can speak to or can't speak to. He was kind in terms of if I was ill, he would, take over the household duties and taking care of the kids. So I think that was one of the reasons why I stayed with him for so long.
Okay. Let's focus on right where you're at the end of the marriage. What happens and what triggers a divorce?
Yeah, I would say about 2 years after his trip to Umrah, it would have been at night time, about maybe 2 o'clock at night. He's actually a driver of a well-known app, I would say. I'm not going to say the actual app, but so it was normal for him to go out at night time and do his work. But that day, he left the home before dinner time. So me and the kids had dinner, and then he hadn't got in touch for a few hours. I thought that was a bit strange, but I didn't think much of it. And I did send him a message saying, are you okay? He didn't reply, but I thought maybe he's driving, so that's fine. At 2 o'clock at night time, all I see is like a police van rolling up to the house. It was just sitting in my driveway, just outside the driveway. And they were there for about 10 minutes. I could see it from my Ring app. So they were there for about 10 minutes. I was thinking, why are they there? Like, has something happened to him? Or are they just, are they on a break or something? If something serious had happened to him, like he's been involved in a car accident, then why would they be sitting in the car? So at this point, I didn't think much of it. But then they got out of the car and they started walking towards the house. So obviously, I ran down the stairs, like made myself as decent as I could. My heart was beating so much at this point that I thought my heart was going to jump out of my chest. I opened the door. I was shaking. They said to me, is this the house of so-and-so? I said yes. And they told me that he's been arrested. He's been detained in this station. They don't tell you what he's been arrested for. So I said, what has he been arrested for? I need to know. They said, by law, they're not allowed to tell me because he's an adult. So they came in, they had documents to say that they can search the property. So they searched the property. They took away laptops, phones, not my phone, obviously, just spare phones in the house. They took my daughter's laptop. They were very good, actually, the police. They weren't like aggressive. They were very nice. They searched the rooms in a nice manner. They didn't leave it messy. They were very considerate, I would say. I mean, at this point, I had to wake up my daughter. She was 16 at the time, to tell her that the police are going to come and search in your room and she needs to leave the room. My daughter's obviously shocked. She's, half awake, half asleep. She didn't know what was going on. So it's very traumatic for her, obviously. And my son was sleeping in the bedroom. He didn't even know what was going on. So obviously at this point, they just explained to me that there's a number I can phone in the morning to find out what's going on and everything. But obviously I didn't get much sleep after that. I was so worried that what's going on, what's happened, what has he been arrested for, what did he do? I was so worried. I had no idea it would be something like this. I mean, I'm trying to remember what actually happened after. So obviously the next day I did get in touch with the police officer who's in charge of the case. I wasn't told straight away what had happened. I just spoke to him. He didn't say much about what he'd done either. He was being very evasive about what he'd done. But when I actually spoke to the officer in charge, he told me he's been arrested for online grooming of a 13-year-old minor. So that was the offence that he had actually done. But even then, they didn't really give me much details. All they said to me was that he can be released on bail, but he needs to go somewhere where there's no children in the house, so he's not allowed to live with me. And these conditions are going to remain in place for it could be up to a year. So obviously at this point, I'm in shock and everything. And I'm trying to organise someone to, pick him up from the station. But even when I'm phoning him, he's not telling me exactly what he'd done. So obviously he got home and then he started crying. And I was trying to get out of him, what exactly did you do? And my daughter's crying. It wasn't a nice place to be. Then I got his sister on the phone who's screaming down the phone. Then I've had to get my brother to come round. It wasn't a very nice experience, Mo. Very traumatic. I think after that incident, I was still shaky. Like, I think 6 weeks, even after my legs were shaking, I was very, very traumatized. It's not nice, police turning up your house in middle of the night, and then telling you that your husband can't come back to the home. What actually happened the next day was I had TFL at my doorstep and they wanted to revoke his license because, as I told you before, he's working for a very known taxi app. And in the letter, he said what he'd done. So the video was actually uploaded onto Facebook. I actually went onto the Facebook site.
What clip?
It was a live stream of what he was doing, basically.
Oh, one of those sting operations.
Yeah.
He went to meet, did you say?
So obviously it's a sting operation, so it's not a real person. So When he went there, he was expecting to meet the girl that he's been speaking to.
A 13-year-old girl.
Yep. Yeah. Obviously, he got the surprise of his life when it was, random strangers just turning up, to the car and getting him out of the car and, pushing him up against the wall and saying that, you done this, you done that. He was confronted about it, and they've got all the evidence, all the messages are there, so he can't deny everything. But I mean, the recording is very distressing as well. I've had a lot of people telling me it's emotionally distressing. He wasn't taking accountability. That was the main thing. He was acting as though he didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't taking accountability. He didn't understand the effect it's going to have on him and his family. When they were telling him that they're going to go and, tell his wife, all he was concerned about, please don't tell her, don't tell her, don't tell her. I'm going to lose her and I'm going to lose my kids, all of this. But he didn't think of that before he done it. Yeah, that was the main thing. That's what's happened. But he still, at this point in time, he still hasn't told me that this is what's happened.
Okay. So did he get a criminal conviction? Was he found guilty?
Yep. Yeah, he pleaded guilty.
Right. And was that what led to the divorce?
Yeah, I mean, the police strictly said he's not allowed back in the family home. Part of his bail conditions were he's not allowed to live at this address. And if he wants to see my kids, it has to be a supervised visit. An adult has to be with him, so I have to be with him. He has to be supervised.
We have a GoFundMe page to raise funds to help British Muslims find a spouse. And our platform consists of two main projects. Number one, marriage events. These are events designed and structured to assist Muslims find a spouse. And number two, our podcast, which you're listening to right now. As you know, it's called Divorce Muslims, A Second Chance. If you want to donate, please find the link to the GoFundMe page below. Let me go to Sister Fiaza. Sister Fiaza, you said you were married for 20 years. In fact, you're the first guest that we've had that's been married for such a long time where it didn't work out. So same question to you. Tell us about your divorce story. Tell us how it happened.
Yes, I met my husband in Pakistan towards the end of that time that we were living out there. And basically, he managed to come over to live over here. It was quite easy then. I think it was different. There were one or two things I noticed, and I had some doubts, but I was very loyal and I very much wanted to get married. I didn't really understand the recurrent health issues. Again, for his sake and my children, I don't want to go into what those health issues were. They were prolonged, and then they were compounded with autism as well. He was 29, so there was cultural differences. Not that he was a bad person or anything like that. I would never say that, But that really took its toll on our marriage,
Okay. And what impact did being divorced have on you? I appreciate it's been a year. But what impact has that had on yourself?
Can I say one thing from the last question?
Yeah, go for it.
So the marriage became almost like a role reversal, which I now look back on and I think it's out of tune with the way things should be, naturally, I was expected to be more like the man, at times and take over when periods of time when he was very ill and not through choice. So don't get me wrong. I want people to understand that, it's for thick and thin. You don't walk out on somebody because they're ill, but when someone's clearly ill, very ill from the beginning, is a huge imbalance there. So back to your next question about impact. Yeah, I mean, I had to, it's not easy. I was about to turn 50. I think it was October before I turned 50. When we finally managed to separate, it was all our finances. I had a business. We had a house, a beautiful house in Surrey. It's starting life all over again, really. It's expensive, let's be practical, because you're talking 2 salaries as opposed to 1. Things like that, it's exhausting. There were things that he did well. When he was well, there were things that he did very, very well. So I missed those things. And then it was difficult. But most of all, it was very difficult for my youngest one who was still living with me. But yeah.
That was my follow-up question. In your case, by the time you're separated at the age of 50, your children are a lot older.
Yeah, one was like university in her 20s and alhamdulillah, and the other one was very young, so 13, 14.
What was the impact on them, about co-parenting and just generally, did they have an input in all of this? How was that for the kids from your perspective?
Yeah, so the older one grew up and experienced some of the negative things that came about from her father being ill. The younger one, so she was, she's quite independent really. The younger one, yes, she missed not having her dad around because it was a lot that he did for her and probably a little closer to her. That's probably how their relationship was. So she missed that. She was upset, with certain things. I handled the separation very well, but again, it took a few years, to work through those layers of finance, and finally get to be able to sell your house. And it was hard. The difficulty's been, actually, I've been managing everything on my own for the last 7 years, because he went back home to take care of his mother and also to manage his own health. And he's only been, back twice since. So I've really been managing it all. He's at the end of a phone, but it's not the same. So yeah, when you're young, you're zealous, you're perhaps a little bit more energy to argue things out in the earlier stages of your marriage. But that's before I understood, the nature of his illness. And after that, I supported him, tried to understand, where reasonably possible. Yeah, that kind of thing. And I would also say, yes, I wish that he had listened and I had been a bit firmer. And when I had said several times, I don't want to be married to you anymore. And I wish I hadn't gone to other people for advice. I wish I had listened more to my own, my own voice inside in myself that was telling me, over the years that this is not for me.
I appreciate the honesty. I'll go back to Sister Amaira. Let's talk about you then, because we focused a lot on your ex-husband. I want to ask you, what impact did the divorce have on you?
I would say divorce is like grief. It's a living bereavement. It's very, very, very difficult, because when you've lived with someone for 19 years and you become a part of their life, it is literally like someone dying. It doesn't matter whether you pushed for the divorce or who was in the wrong, or, how bad someone was. They could have been the worst person, but you feel a sense of loss. And that was what was really difficult, that, he split up the family. I've lost my husband. I think that was the most difficult thing to come to terms with.
Do you think you made any mistakes in your marriage?
Not really, because I think I did try and did my best by him. So I was always, in terms of I was traditional. So I don't really understand why he done what he done. Because in terms of being a wife, I was, ticking all the boxes, serving him food, everything I was doing for him. I was respectful to him. I was a good mom. I was doing everything a wife should be doing. He had everything that he needed to. He didn't need to go and do these kind of things. I know what society will say, that, she didn't do things to keep him satisfied, and they might have some kind of opinion, but my opinion is that I did do everything by the book. But with him, he has a way of winding people up. So when I used to react to any kind of argument, it wasn't very good the way I used to react and everything, but he made me become like that.
The official term for that is called gaslighting. Let me ask you the next question. How did you bounce back from your divorce?
I would say I had support from my family, or his immediate family. His family were actually quite supportive in the beginning. And I would say my colleagues mainly, and I have a few close friends. They were the main people who helped me. And I would even say because I work in a pharmacy, so I have a lot of patients who know me very well, and they feel like I'm a kind of like a daughter to them. They reached out to me and they really, really helped me to, come to terms with everything.
And same question to Sister Fiaza. How do you bounce back? How did you bounce back?
It's a really good question, Mohammed. I know I can say that now with a smile on my face, but by chance, I rented a gorgeous apartment in a beautiful flat in a listed building. Really lifted my spirits. I decided to go and work in Restarting Life. But I decided to go and work in central London, where I'd originally trained back in the day, and get some more qualifications. And I decided, and that led me to where I am now, which in a job where I work with some really interesting celebrities and VIPs. And there's never 2 days are never the same, but I love it. And I decided to specialize and become more niche, and my love of learning increased, and I met some just amazing people. I just think everything happens for a reason. I look at life in a very infectious, positive way. My boss, very well known, has become one of my best friends and a mentor. My eldest daughter, got married, and my youngest has, got to uni. And so just so focused, my mother, all those things, eventually came back home to live with my mom. That was very healing after my father passed away. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice to hear that, you've left it all behind you. Alhamdulillah. I'll go back to Sister Amaira. One thing I want to ask you is, because you mentioned earlier that you did fall in love with him. When all of this happened, and sorry if this sounds like a patronizing or a silly question, but I still want to ask you it. Were you hurt? Yeah,
of course, yeah. I mean, in the beginning, in terms of what he used to do in the beginning, and if somebody's doing that constantly, your love starts going. So at some point in time, I was kind of thinking, hang on a minute, like, he's doing all of these stuff and he's not listening to me. I started losing respect for him, and my love for him kind of went. I just cared about him as the father of my kids. That's it.
I understand. And only answer this if you're comfortable with this next question. I was going to ask you, how did the kids take it? You mentioned your daughter was 16, 17 at the time when the police knocked on the door. How did the kids take this, knowing what, I'm assuming they know what happened?
My son was 5 at the time, so he doesn't really understand, but my daughter was completely broken. Yeah, I mean, with my son, he was asking for a few days, like, why is my daddy not sleeping with me? And I want to cuddle my dad. And I literally didn't know how to even answer that. I just, took him in my arms and just cuddled him. But yeah, my daughter was broken, as expected, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with him, which is understandable. But with him, he was acting as though he didn't do anything wrong. I think the main thing what I can tell you is he was very adamant that he hadn't done anything wrong. He was saying that it was just messages and, what's her problem? Like, why does she have a problem with it? Considering that his daughter is 16 and the girl was 13 years old, he should kind of have some kind of common sense that, it's not acceptable and why she's upset. But he didn't have that kind of mental capacity to understand the effect it's going to have on her.
Okay. The last question I want to ask you before we move on to your search as a divorcee revolves around the community, maybe your family as well. What's your take on how your family took all of this from the first time this happened, the 14-year-old incident with your next door neighbor, and to this time, towards the end of the marriage? What's your take on how the society perceived all of this and said what they said to you?
I think the first time, they were supportive, obviously, but I wouldn't say they thought divorce was an option, but they weren't happy with what he'd done. But they didn't push me for divorce. But my brother was, I wouldn't say hell-bent on making me get a divorce, but he wasn't happy about the situation. He always thought there was something dodgy about him. He noticed it from day one in terms of the way he used to speak to certain women in the family. He didn't like the way he was always flirtatious and everything. My brother knew there was something off about him, and he was right, actually. But in terms of the wider net, like cousins and uncles, aunties, I've heard people saying stupid things like that I shouldn't have divorced him. I should have just been more open about it and just, taking him back. So I found that a bit weird. Yeah. I've had a few cousins or like even friends who have not even reached out to me, asking me what happened, nothing. It just seems that divorce is not like, people act as though it's not an issue. I wouldn't say like they think it's okay, but they think it's not a big deal. But, had I actually been like a grieving widow and my husband had died, then I think people would have reached out. But because divorce is not classed as bereavement, people don't reach out. Okay,
so now I want to focus on your marriage search as a divorcee. Sister Fiaza, what's the search been like for you?
I would say I was very much out of my depth. I'm not going to lie. I started on Salams, not understanding the modern dating mindset and how to overcome the perils of it. It was tricky. Then once I think I kind of took the horse by the reins, I then took on like a matchmaker. She was trying to help me, and then it's been a journey actually. And then that led me to looking at a life coach. It led me down a rabbit hole actually, which was but interesting because I then started, it's a lifelong journey, this self-development. So, I thought, oh my God, I've got a book from Marissa Peers. I hadn't even read it. It was one of my daughter's books. Then I started listening to Esther Perel, Logan Ury. I went to see a chap called Matthew Hussey in London. That was amazing. Absolutely. That was just fantastic. Listening to Sadia Khan, and that started me really understanding that, you have to kind of be prepared and have a certain mindset. Otherwise, you're just going to struggle with this whole thing. In between marriage events, I've even volunteered at one to try and understand it better. And I was trying to be helpful that night. I think I was, hopefully. And I went a little bit out of my comfort zone to help people. I've met the founders of Muz and Single Muslim. Actually, they were quite courteous and helpful. Honestly, been on, on those marriage apps. You learn a lot about yourself, your attachment styles, that you really want to marry well, all sorts of things, really.
Let me ask you the next question, which was, do you feel being divorced has impacted your search for marriage, and what are the challenges you have faced in your search for marriage?
I think for me, because of my age, they're expecting me to be divorced. What my challenges have been So I think my age, getting unmatched and being told by people that you're not compatible and that sort of thing, sometimes for no reason, sometimes you're told it's your age, you get ghosted, love bombed, and then you think, well, men in their 40s and 50s won't do that, but they do. They still do. They still think they can do that, So yeah, I think I've become more resilient as a result.
Amaira, let's focus on what's your marriage search been like as a divorcee?
I mean, I've joined like a few like WhatsApp groups and the dating apps. But I think the main thing is just like when you have children, it's just the guys feel that they can't take the children on. They also feel that they want children of their own. And one of my deal breakers is I don't want to have any more children. Also, like I have relocation issues. I can't relocate because I have to put my children first. Like they've had enough unsettlement in their lives. I don't want to unsettle them even more. So that's another reason why I'm finding it difficult.
Do you feel being a divorcee has impacted your search for marriage?
Yeah, definitely. I always say people do judge you, but I don't think, the people I've spoken to have been quite like nice about it. It's not like they've been horrible about it. Because when I've explained to them what's happened, there's not really anything they can say to me that, it was your fault or anything. So in that way, it's okay that people don't judge you. I think even single people, they're all right about it, actually.
And what sorts of challenges have you faced in your search for marriage?
I mean, I think just what I explained before, just relocation and people not accepting the fact that I've got children.
Fair enough. And any experience that you want to share, if you have any to share, in your marriage search?
Yeah, there was just one guy, but he wanted to have children, but yeah, I couldn't really do that. So, yeah.
Okay. And what about you, Sister Fiaza? Any experience you want to share as in your search for marriage as a divorcee?
It's coming on to a year. I haven't met the other one yet. I've had one or two that I thought, maybe we'd formed a connection, maybe we'd formed a bond. But the WhatsApp groups are quite interesting. Someone came to see me from that. And actually, one thing I remember is they explained to my brother through these, the more halal, like pure matrimony, they explained to my brother that what had happened. And some of them I find have actually been married 2 and 3 times. That's one thing I found quite surprising. Because you don't know that, and there's no way of knowing that. And there's also no way, most of the apps don't verify people, so it's a bit worrying that they should be made to. And then when I asked a couple of questions, this gentleman, he was very interested, came to see me, and similar to what my brother had asked, but I needed to ask those questions. I have to hear the answer to that myself. He didn't like me asking, or I think he'd had a bad day and he apologized to my brother, and so we left it there. So that was that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so back to you, Amaira. Just some general questions for you. How important is physical attraction to you, Amaira?
Yeah, it's very important. From both ends, by the way.
Both ends, meaning?
It has to be both.
Oh, mutual.
I feel like with my ex, I actually found out he was forced into marrying me as well. So that could be one of the breakdowns of my marriage anyway, that he wasn't happy to get married to me in the first place.
Okay. And how important is financial stability in a man to you?
It's important, but I don't expect you to be having like a 6-figure salary.
So what kind of salary would you want?
I don't really mind. There's nothing that bothers me because you live within your means. That's what I believe. I'm not into like money anyway.
Okay. Talking of money, as you know, there's many women in this day and age who want high mahar amounts. What's your take on that?
The mahar wouldn't even come into the question. When you have children, that's the main question. Like, are you going to be able to, handle my children? Or I don't expect someone to take on my children as their own, but, respect, and kind of looking out for them. That's all I'm looking for.
Do you have a mahar requirement?
No, it's not even something I've thought about, to be honest with you.
Okay. What's your take on polygamy?
I was before quite against it, but I'm quite open to it, but it's not something that I would do right now or even in the near future. It's not something that, but I understand why people, would do it. Yeah. I'm more understanding now because of my situation of being a single mum.
Yeah. Okay. I want you to reflect back 20 or 25 years ago when you were sort of at marriageable age at the younger version of yourself. Was your criteria different then compared to what it is now as a divorcee?
Back then, I didn't even have a criteria. I didn't even know what criteria was because I wasn't even looking for marriage. I was only 19. I wasn't banking on getting married that early. I was thinking like mid-20s. I didn't have a clue about criteria. But obviously now I've made a profile. I'm not really bothered about things like education or how much money the guy is earning. But things like age, I am bothered about because he has to be similar age to me. I think that's the only thing I'm wary about.
Okay. And here's a question for you. Generally speaking, the British Muslim community, within that, people are finding it difficult to get married. Why do you think that's the case? What's the problem here?
Like, they just see one thing that's like a red flag and they think, oh no, I'm not going to, take up this potential. But, they're not ticking all of my boxes. But I think if most of the boxes are ticked, then you should just go with it and just, trust in Allah, and, it will work out by itself.
Yeah. Okay. And what advice would you give to divorced people who are looking for marriage right now?
Don't look at little things like that. Look at the bigger picture and, see how he interacts with his own family, how he is towards you. Like, if he's on his deen, that's the main thing. You don't need a 6-figure salary. It's not one of those things. Just look at normal stuff and day-to-day stuff. It's not that difficult. I think that people make it difficult for themselves.
Okay. So, Amaira, before we do the rapid fire round and the profile, is there anything else that you want to say?
I think the reason I'm doing this podcast is mainly just to raise awareness that sometimes, getting divorced is a good thing, like for your own sanity. I mean, had he carried on, I think I would have lost my sanity anyway. I think I was at that point. I think some sheikhs or scholars think that you shouldn't get divorced. But in this situation, it's not acceptable. This kind of behavior is not acceptable. And I think I'm trying to change that kind of mindset that, you can get divorced.
Do you ever blame the people that made this happen? Because initially you said you were sort of forced and maybe he was forced. Do you ever blame those people?
No, you can't know what a person is like to that extent. And the way he came across, he was very charming, again, very kind, generous. He had manners in front of people. He could be childish at times as well, but he was a likable character, I would say. A lot of people liked him because he wouldn't show the real side of him, obviously. He was like what you'd call a nice person, in inverted commas.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Obviously, no one could have seen that on comments. How can you blame them? Okay, I'll go to Sister Fiaza. So how important is physical attraction to you?
Well, I know that men are definitely more visual than women, but I think it's important, especially in the initial stages. But for me, my husband was incredibly handsome, so that wasn't the thing. But I now realise that it's the connection. For me, it's more about the connection, or as much, let's say, I think a good blend of both personally. You've got to connect on all, you've got to be interested in the same things. And there's no second time round again for me. It's going to be, this is the one. I was reading actually somewhere the other day that it can take on average 2 to 5 years. So I'm thinking, well, it's fine if that's the case.
Okay. Average 2 to 5 years to find a spouse. That's quite interesting. Sister Fiaza, how important is financial stability in a man to you?
Yeah, it's important. It's very important. I'm at a different stage in my life, but definitely I want some comfort, and I understand Islamically what my rights are. That's not to say that I'm a gold digger, because that's what I've heard. Very upsetting things like that from men referring to women. They need to have ambition, drive, be on the same page. I've worked hard my entire life, so I'm happy to support. But yeah, I do want financial stability.
Okay. What's your take on this whole mahar, the high requirements some sisters may have and brothers not feeling happy about that? What's your take on mahar?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Definitely one I've heard a few times. I'm at a different stage in my life. It's open to negotiation, to be honest. If I'm not with the right person, any amount is no good to me. It's useless, So hopefully we will negotiate something. I haven't even thought of an amount. It will be based on... If I met someone that I thought could really afford it, then perhaps I would ask for a little bit more, but I haven't got an amount in my head yet.
Okay. Would you consider polygamy?
Polygamy? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be something that would sit comfortably with me again. I think it would just make me feel very insecure. No, that would be the only thing. And I'm generally not an insecure person, so it wouldn't be something I would agree to.
Okay. Why do you think the British Muslims are struggling to get married today?
Yeah, I think there's a big issue that they're not understanding their deen. They're not really understanding. I'm not saying we can be the perfect, beautiful human being that our prophet was, but I think we don't understand the roles of men and women. But for me, because I'm older, part of the reason I came on this podcast was explain, so the mentality of men as they get older, I've come across them saying things like damaged goods. They speak about themselves as being damaged goods, which I thought was quite alarming. They're worried about the amount of money they've lost, in their previous marriages. Then that makes them very cautious. What happens is they subconsciously, I think some of them, not all of them, have this they want to get married, but they just won't commit because they're scared. And then this pen pal type mindset starts. So let's keep talking and talking and talking. Also, I think they're left financially worse off. There's a lot of issues around the law in this country versus being in a Muslim country. But it's all about being fair to each other. It really is, because at the end of the day, you know, especially if you've got children that you share, you have to show them, if possible, if at all possible, sometimes it is near impossible, you have to show them how to behave. It can be ended more amicably anyway, in my case. So this is another thing. I think women are doing strange things like, and I get it. I work in the industry where we make people look good, you know, and make them, you know, get it and want to look younger and all those things. So, but they're photoshopping themselves, some of them. And so when men meet them, they might have a beautiful face, but they're very overweight, you know, things like that. So there's a lot of emphasis on social media. There's a big role to play in the way, you know, it portrays women, and women just constantly, you know, having to feel like they have to look a certain way. I'm all in for, you know, definitely taking care of yourself. I think people shouldn't stop doing that. I think that's a mistake. You know, you should take pride in your appearance. And, you know, so I think for me, that's been a struggle. You know, as I said before, you know, age brings its own challenges, you know, but yeah.
Final question, and I'll start off with you, Sister Fiaza. What advice would you give to divorced Muslims who are looking for marriage?
I would really say that they should follow their deen. They should, if they're struggling, I think they should get help. You know, Dr. Asif, Dr. Afzal Muhammad, there's people on LinkedIn, there's people for women, you know, read about neuroscience and learn about yourself. It'll help you unravel how you think and how you could be better. You know, maybe look for something different. Just try it and see if that works. Maybe look at a person from a different country. I've tried that, you know, Pakistani, Indian, and try and get off the apps and meet people if possible, you know, because that's where the magic lies. I think that's where I think it's going to, you know, you're going to find out what someone's like, you know.
Okay. Amaira, are you ready for the rapid fire round, yeah? You know how that works. You should be accustomed to it.
Yeah.
All right. So, a guy that gives you 100k mahar or a guy that is super practicing?
Super practicing.
Rich guy who you don't find attractive or poor guy who you find very attractive?
Poor guy.
Living with in-laws or living independently?
Living independently.
Looks or character?
Can I say a bit of both?
You can say what you want. A doctor with very low-level deen or an Uber driver with high deen?
I'll go with a Uber driver with a high deen.
Educated guy or attractive guy?
Educated guy.
One regret in life?
Obviously getting married that young, actually, I would say.
Biggest achievement to date?
Having my 2 children.
And what's your biggest dream?
Succeed in life and see my children succeed, really.
May Allah make that happen. We'll go to Sister Fiaza. Fiaza, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay, a guy that gives you 100k mahar or a guy that is super practicing?
Practicing.
Rich guy who you don't find attractive or poor guy who you find very attractive?
Poor guy.
Living with in-laws or living independently?
Preferably independently.
Looks or character?
Character.
A doctor with very low-level deen or an Uber driver with high deen?
That's not an easy one, is it? Uber driver with high deen.
Educated guy or attractive guy?
Education over everything, always.
One thing you really want, but you could compromise on for the right person?
I could compromise on someone being younger or quite a bit older, I suppose.
Okay. One regret in life?
That I listened to people and wasn't able to exit my marriage in my 40s.
Biggest achievement to date?
My children's many achievements, yeah.
Okay, and your biggest dream?
Oh, to go on Umrah with my potential, or Hajj preferably.
May Allah make that big dream happen. Okay, and finally, we have the profile time. So I'm going to stick with Fiaza for now. We're going to do a mini profile again. It's just one word answers apart from the summary, what you're looking for. So we'll go straight into it. So starting off with Sister Fiaza, what is your age?
57.
What's your height?
5 foot.
Your location?
West London.
Your ethnicity?
Pakistani.
Your occupation?
I'm a skin specialist.
Okay, now we're going to move on to what you're looking for. So what's your preference in terms of age range?
Preferably 49 to 63.
What's your height preference?
5'7" and upwards.
What's your location preference?
London or UK.
What's your ethnicity preference?
Pakistani, Indian, Bosnian.
Occupation preference?
Degree or someone that's got a skill, like a really well-established skill.
In summary, what are you looking for apart from the other things that you've already mentioned?
Somebody who appreciates me, someone who knows age is just a number when it comes to me, fun, sense of humor, God-fearing, patient, someone who takes care of himself, someone who exercises, eats well. That's really important to me. Someone who's open to doing volunteer work, which is one of my passions, and maybe even a deployment or two abroad with me.
Okay. That's the end of your profile. Sister Amaira, let's talk about yourself first. What's your age?
41.
Your height?
4'7".
Your location?
London.
Your ethnicity?
Indian.
And your occupation?
Pharmacy assistant.
And in terms of what you're looking for, what's your age range that you're looking for?
37 to 47.
Your height preference?
I don't really have one, but not someone too tall.
Your location preference?
London.
Ethnicity preference?
I would just say South Asian.
And occupation preference?
None.
Okay. And finally, in summary, what are you looking for?
Just someone that's normal, basically. Yeah, I mean, I think when you come out from the worst kind of experience, I think everything else just becomes minor. I don't think I could find anyone as worse as that. So to me, it's just about having respect for someone, and someone that would respect me, respect my children, will look out for me, and just be, like a normal person. I'm not looking for anything that's out of this world. I just want someone that I can, have laughs with. Yeah, that I can just spend the rest of my life with and just live a normal, comfortable life without, aggravation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amaira. Is there any final points you want to make?
Jazakallah that you let me come on and explain my story. I've just got one more thing to add into the story. His behavior after he got arrested, I would say, was disgusting. He wasn't taking accountability. He was vile towards me. He was abusive. I was getting messages left, right and center and phone calls. He was being very, very, very nasty towards me. You'd think that someone would be remorseful for what they've done, but he was completely opposite that. As far as forgiveness goes, if someone is remorseful, you may be open to forgiving them, but the very behavior, the very fact that he was behaving this way, even after it was him that made the mistake, he said to me, "I'm going to ruin your life." He wasn't playing ball, basically. He wasn't giving me a divorce. I had to keep telling him time and time again that, I want a divorce. He wasn't listening to me, but yeah, he was very vile and, trying to turn people against me. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to say, that he wasn't sorry for what he'd done.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. May Allah grant you a righteous spouse, and whoever is good for you and whatever is good for you in terms of a partner, may Allah grant you that. I just want to say thank you to the both of you for joining the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it has had some positive impact on you.
Muhammad, thank you so much.
If you fit the criteria of the guest today, and if you are interested in considering the guest for marriage, then please email us the following details: your name, age, location, height, occupation, ethnicity, marital status, family contact name, and details. Our email address is divorcedmuslims@gmail.com. Remember the golden rule: only family details will be exchanged. If we have no family details, then the request will be ignored. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, then please email us at divorcedmuslims@gmail.com. We have a GoFundMe page to raise funds to help British Muslims find a spouse, and our platform consists of two main projects. Number one, marriage events. These are events designed and structured to assist Muslims find a spouse. And number two, our podcast, which you're listening to right now. As you know, it's called Divorced Muslims, A Second Chance. If you want to donate, please find the link to the GoFundMe page below.